I should have known the moment I saw his name flash on my phone, Ethan calling, that it would end the same way it always did. But hope is a stubborn thing, isn't it? It clings like a stain no matter how many times you scrub. So I answered, and there it was. That pause, the one that always came before the knife twisted. Lena, I need to talk to you. I didn't need to hear the rest. My body knew before my brain did, the way my chest tightened, the way my fingers went numb around the phone. He was leaving. Again. Clara's going through something, he said, as if that explained everything. As if I hadn't heard this exact script before. She needs me right now. I wanted to laugh, or scream, or maybe throw the phone against the wall and watch it shatter like my dignity. But I didn't do any of those things. I just stood there, silent, because what was left to say? That I was tired of being his backup plan, that I was sick of waiting for him to realise I was the one who stayed, while Clara was the one who only wanted him when it suited her. He kept talking, filling the silence with excuses that tasted like ash. It's not what you think. It was. This isn't about us. It never was. I just need some time. He'd taken all of mine already. I hung up. No dramatics, no begging. Just the quiet click of a line going dead. The apartment felt too big and too small all at once. I wandered to the fridge where a half-empty bottle of wine sat next to a takeout container from the last time he'd bothered to show up. I poured myself a glass, then dumped it down the sink. Even the wine tasted like surrender. My phone buzzed, Ethan calling again. I silenced it. Then, methodically, I deleted his number, his texts, the photos I'd stupidly saved in a hidden folder, like some pathetic shrine to a love that never existed. I tore the sheets off the bed, the ones that still smelled like him, and stuffed them into the washing machine like I could scrub him out of my life with detergent and hot water. But the worst part, the part that made me want to crawl out of my own skin, I still missed him. Even now, even after all of it, some twisted part of me wondered if he'd change his mind this time. If maybe, just once, he'd choose me. That's when I knew I had to get out. I called Maya, my voice eerily calm. I need a drink, and I need to never talk about Ethan again. She didn't ask questions. She just said, I'll be there in 10. I grabbed my keys, my hand steady for the first time all night. The air outside was cold, sharp, the kind of cold that wakes you up. I took a deep breath, and for the first time in months, it didn't hurt. Then, I got in the car and drove. Away from him. Away from the girl who kept taking him back. Away from the life I'd let him shrink me into. I didn't know it then, but that was the last night I'd ever remember loving him. Fate had other plans. The roads were slick with rain, the kind that turns headlights into smeared streaks of gold against black pavement. I gripped the steering wheel too tight, my knuckles pale, my thoughts still buzzing with the bitter aftertaste of Ethan's voice. Maya had talked me down over 2 martinis, her words sharp and reassuring. You're better off. You always were. But the anger hadn't settled yet. It thrummed under my skin, restless, like it needed somewhere to go. I took the turn too fast. The tyres lost traction for just a second, just long enough for my stomach to lurch, for time to slow in that strange, suspended way it does right before disaster. Then the world spun, the headlights whirling like a carousel gone mad, and the last thing I remember is the deafening crunch of metal, the shattering of glass, and the thought, absurd and fleeting, of course this happens tonight. When I woke up, everything was white, sterile. The hospital ceiling stared back at me, fluorescent lights humming like insects. My head pounded, a dull, insistent ache, and when I tried to sit up, a nurse rushed over, her hands gentle but firm. Easy, she said. You've been through a lot. A doctor explained it to me later. Concussion, bruised ribs, a miracle it wasn't worse. Then came the strange part. Do you remember what happened? He asked. I did. the rain, the skid, the impact. But when he asked, "Do you know why you were out driving so late?" I hesitated. The reason felt slippery, like a word on the tip of my tongue. I remembered Maya's face across the bar, the way she'd rolled her eyes at something. But the why behind my anger, the sharp, fresh wound that had sent me into that car, it was gone. My family arrived in a flurry of hugs and tearful scolding. My mum kept smoothing my hair back, her fingers trembling. "We were so scared," she whispered. But there was something else in her eyes too. Relief. Not just that I was alive, but that I was different. "Do you remember Ethan?" my sister asked carefully, like she was prodding a bruise. The name meant nothing. Blank space. I frowned, searching for a face, a feeling, anything. But there was only emptiness where there should have been recognition. "No," I said. "Should I?" The glance they exchanged was all of the answer I needed. Later, the doctor called it selective retrograde amnesia, my brain's way of protecting itself. Some memories stay, others are packed away, locked in some dark corner of my mind. The irony wasn't lost on me, the one thing I'd wanted, to forget him, and it took a car wreck to make it happen. I should have been scared, confused, but all I felt was light, like I'd been carrying something heavy for years without realizing it, and now, suddenly, I could stand up straight. Little did I know, the past wasn't done with me yet, and neither was Ethan. Coming home from the hospital felt like stepping into someone else's life. The apartment smelled faintly of lemon cleaner and old takeout, familiar yet strangely foreign. Sunlight streamed through the half-open blinds, catching dust motes that floated lazily in the air. I ran my fingers along the back of the couch, the fabric soft under my fingertips, and wondered why the place felt both lived in and hollow at the same time. There were gaps, small but noticeable, a hook by the door where a coat should have hung but didn't, a single toothbrush in the bathroom glass, drawers that opened too easily, as if they'd been recently emptied of something. My reflection in the mirror looked like me, but the eyes staring back held questions I couldn't answer. I found a photo album on the shelf, its pages filled with smiling faces, me with Maya at the beach, my family at Christmas, co-workers at some office party. Then, abruptly, a series of torn edges where pictures had been removed. Jagged little absences in an otherwise perfect record. My thumb brushed over the empty spaces, and for a moment, I thought I felt something. A whisper of anger, quick and hot. But then it was gone. The bedroom was the worst. The bed was neatly made, but one side looked untouched, the pillows too perfectly fluffed. The closet held my clothes in organised rows, but there were hangers with nothing on them, spaced at regular intervals like missing teeth. I pulled open the nightstand drawer and found a lone silver cufflink glinting in the dim light. I picked it up, turning it over in my palm, waiting for recognition that never came. That's when the doorbell rang. The man on my doorstep held roses like a shield, his smile too wide, too hopeful. "Lena," he said, my name falling from his lips like a prayer. "God, I've been so worried." I blinked at him, this stranger who acted like he knew me, who stepped forward like he had every right to be here. His cologne hit me first, something expensive and woody, and my stomach twisted in a way I didn't understand. "You must be Ethan," I said, the name feeling strange in my mouth. His face did something complicated then. Hope and guilt and something desperate, all fighting for space. "You remember me?" "Not really." I kept the door between us, my fingers tight on the frame. "My sister mentioned you." The roses sagged slightly in his grip. "Right, of course." He cleared his throat. "Can I come in? There's so much I need to explain." "I don't think that's a good idea." The words came automatically, some deep part of me putting up walls I didn't remember building. He looked like I'd slapped him. "Lena, please, what we had." What we have. What did we have? Exactly, I asked, and watched his mouth open and close without sound. A car honked down the street, breaking the moment. Ethan ran a hand through his hair, the picture of a man unravelling. Just let me take you to coffee. One conversation. If after that, you never want to see me again, I'll walk away. I should have said no, but the curiosity was stronger than the unease. Who was this man who left holes in my apartment and my history? What had been important enough to erase? One coffee, I said, and watched his eyes light up in a way that should have meant something. As I closed the door, my gaze caught on that single cufflink still clutched in my hand. I didn't remember putting it there. The past wasn't gone, just buried, and it was starting to dig its way out. The cafe smelled like burnt espresso and cinnamon, the kind of place where first dates and business meetings happened in equal measure. Ethan had chosen it. Our spot, he'd said with that practiced smile, but nothing about the chipped blue mug in front of me, or the sticky vinyl booth beneath me felt familiar. He leaned forward, elbows on the table, his fingers steepled like he was praying. You used to order the lavender latte, he offered, as if this trivia might unlock something. Extra foam. You said it tasted like spring. I stirred my black coffee, watching the liquid swirl. Sounds pretentious. His laugh was too loud, too eager. That's what I always told you. The way his eyes searched mine, hungry for recognition, made my skin prickle. This wasn't about me remembering. This was about him being remembered. A waitress refilled his water, her gaze lingering on his sharp jawline. I noted how he didn't thank her, how his wedding ring finger tapped absently against the table. Bare. You're staring, he said, flashing teeth. Just wondering what kind of man stalks amnesiacs. The word slipped out sharper than I'd intended, but his grin only widened. Still got that bite. He reached across the table, his thumb brushing my knuckles. Some things don't need memories. I yanked my hand back. The contact left a phantom burn. Let's say I believe we were together. Why aren't we now? His expression shifted, just for a heartbeat, into something raw and panicked before smoothing over. Timing, he said too quickly. I had family stuff. You needed space. The lie hung between us, obvious as the lipstick stain on his collar that definitely wasn't mine. Outside, rain began pattering against the window. Ethan seized on the distraction, nodding toward the storm. Remember how you loved dancing in the rain? That night in Brooklyn? I don't. I stood abruptly, my chair screeching. And you're trying too hard. He caught my wrist as I reached for my coat. Give me 2 weeks, he murmured, his breath warm against my temple. Let me remind you. For a dangerous moment, I almost considered it. Not because of him, but because of the mystery. What version of myself had loved this man? What had he done to make my mind revolt against him so completely? I pulled free, leaving him with his untouched coffee and carefully constructed stories. The truth was out there, waiting, and I no longer needed Ethan Mercer to find it. Maya's apartment smelled like jasmine incense and unfinished art projects. Canvases leaned against the walls, half-painted scenes bleeding into each other, just like my memories. She handed me a glass of wine so full it nearly spilled, her dark eyes tracking my every twitch. You saw him? Not a question. I traced the rim of my glass. He knew things, small things. Of course he did. She snorted, flopping onto her thrift store couch. A tube of cadmium red rolled off the cushion, leaving a faint smudge on the floor. That doesn't make them true. Sunset painted the room in amber streaks as I picked at the label on the bottle. There's this emptiness where he should be. Like a missing tooth my tongue won't stop probing. Maya stilled. For the first time since the accident, her usual confidence wavered. She reached for her own wine, buying time. Tell me, I pressed. She exhaled through her nose. Remember sophomore year when you swore off tequila after that frat party? Vaguely. Exactly. She jabbed a paint-stained finger at me. Your brain protects you from shit that hurts. Maybe this is the same. The subtext hung between us, thick as the gesso on her work table. I studied the abstract painting behind her, angry red slashes over a serene blue background. Did I love him? Maya's silence lasted 3 heartbeats too long. You cried over him, she finally said. That's not the same thing. Outside, a siren wailed past. The wine turned sour on my tongue. He's hiding something. Obviously. She snatched up a palette knife, stabbing at an invisible spot on her jeans. But here's the thing about blank slates. You get to choose what gets written this time. A text buzzed my phone. Ethan's name flashed with a heart emoji he must have added himself. Maya's jaw tightened. I deleted it without opening it. She grinned, raising her glass. Progress. The missing pieces still ached, but for the first time, I wondered if some gaps were better left unfilled. Maya's truths came in fragments, but they were real, unlike Ethan's perfectly crafted stories. I clinked my glass against hers, watching the ripples distort our reflections. Some memories were better earned than given. The dream came in shattered fragments. A woman's laughter like wind chimes made of glass, the scent of gardenias thick enough to choke on. Ethan's voice whispering, just friends, in that tone that curled like smoke. I woke with my nails digging into my palms, the ghost of someone else's perfume clinging to my sheets. My apartment felt too quiet in the 3 a.m. darkness. I stumbled to the bathroom, splashing cold water on my face. The mirror showed dark circles under my eyes, a stranger's exhaustion staring back. That's when I noticed it, a faint line of text scribbled on the foggy glass, nearly faded but still legible. Clara's party, don't forget. My own handwriting. The name sent a jolt through me. Clara, Ethan's just a friend from the dream. Suddenly wide awake, I tore through my apartment like a detective at a crime scene. Receipts crammed in kitchen drawers, old planners buried under expired coupons. I scavenged for clues with a desperation that scared me. Under a stack of unopened bills, I found a cocktail napkin from some upscale bar. Smudged lipstick, a phone number, and, in messy script, call me when you're done being his consolation prize. See. The napkin trembled in my hands. This wasn't just this was warfare. At dawn, I drove to the only place that might hold answers. My office. The security guard raised an eyebrow at my rumpled clothes, but let me pass. My desk was a time capsule, neatly organised pens, a wilted succulent, and, taped to the bottom drawer, a key I didn't recognise. It fit the locked file cabinet in the corner. Inside, a manila folder with one word scrawled across it. Evidence. My breath hitched as I flipped it open. Printed emails, screenshots of texts, a hotel receipt for a double room. All dated during our anniversary weekend. The last page was a sticky note in my own furious handwriting. Remember this when he says he loves you. Outside, the sun rose over the city, painting everything in brutal clarity. The memories still wouldn't come, but the proof was undeniable. Ethan hadn't just left me, he'd destroyed me. And my past self had left a trail of breadcrumbs to make sure I'd never forget again. The coffee shop was my sanctuary. Same corner table every Tuesday, same oat milk cappuccino. Today, though, the air tasted different. Charged. Like the moment before lightning strikes. She slid into the chair opposite me without invitation, her perfume invading my space before she even spoke. Gardenias and something darker, more expensive. Lena, right? Her smile was all polished veneer. I'm Clara. The name hit like a sucker punch. Up close, she was exactly the kind of beautiful that made sense. Sleek dark hair, manicured nails tapping the table, the effortless elegance of someone who'd never had to beg for attention. I gripped my cup to keep my hand steady. Do I know you? Not really, she tilted her head, studying me like a specimen under glass. Though you certainly tried. A laugh, light and cruel. All those late-night texts when Ethan was with me, the way you'd show up at his work unannounced. The words landed like knives, but nothing stuck. My mind remained stubbornly blank where there should have been shame, recognition, anything. Clara's smirk faltered when I didn't react. She leaned in, voice dropping to a honeyed whisper. The accident was convenient, wasn't it? Now you get to play the wounded bird while he... Let me guess. I cut her off, surprising us both with my calm. You're here to warn me away, claim your territory. I took a slow sip, watching her perfect composure crack. Funny, if he's really yours, why do you need to tell me? Her manicure dug into the table's edge. You think this is over? He always comes back to me. The certainty in her voice sparked something. Not memory, but instinct. I stood, leaving cash under my saucer. Then why are you here talking to me instead of being with him? Her lips parted, but no clever retort came. I grabbed my coat, the pieces slotting into place without needing to remember. Clara wasn't the victor. She was just another casualty of Ethan's games. The bell above the door jingled as I left her sitting there, her gardenia scent clinging to my clothes like a warning. Some battles aren't worth fighting, but the war wasn't over yet. Sleep didn't come. It dragged me under like a riptide. One moment I was staring at my bedroom ceiling, the next I stood in a hallway that stretched endlessly, lined with doors that rattled as I passed. Behind one, muffled laughter. Ethan's low and intimate, twined with Clara's crystalline giggle. My fingers hovered over the knob, slick with cold sweat. Don't open it. I turned the handle anyway. The scene hit like a gut punch. Ethan's hands tangled in Clara's hair, his mouth trailing down her neck as she arched against him. But when they turned, their faces were wrong, smudged, like a photograph left in the rain. You weren't enough, Clara said, except the voice was mine. I stumbled back, crashing into another door that burst open under my weight. This time, it was me and Ethan in his kitchen, sunlight streaming through curtains I'd never seen. He was crying, his forehead pressed to mine. I'll choose you this time, I swear. The memory, if that's what it was, rippled like disturbed water. My dream self shoved him away. You don't get to keep hurting me just because I keep letting you. A third door. A hospital bed. My own face stared back, pale against the starch-white sheets as a nurse adjusted my IV. Visiting hours are over, she murmured to someone off-screen. Tell her I'll come back tomorrow. Ethan's voice floated in, thick with something that wasn't quite guilt. The me in the bed turned toward the window. Don't bother. I woke gasping. The sheets twisted around my legs like shackles. Dawn painted the room in sickly grey light, but the dream clung, not as fragments, but as bone-deep certainty. These weren't nightmares. They were flashbacks. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. Ethan's name glowed in the dimness, another pleading text I wouldn't answer. Outside, a storm brewed, the first fat raindrops hitting the window like fingertips tapping for entry. The past wasn't knocking anymore. It was kicking the door down. The shoebox at the back of my closet shouldn't have existed. I'd torn my apartment apart for days, convinced I'd uncovered every hidden wound. But there it was, dusty and unassuming, tucked behind winter boots I never wore. The lid resisted at first, as if whatever waited inside knew its power. Yellowed concert tickets, a dried rose pressed between pages of a notebook, and at the bottom, a single ultrasound photo with a date from last year circled in smudged red ink. My hands shook, not from confusion, but from the visceral, body-deep certainty that this was mine. The memories rushed in like floodwaters. Ethan's panicked face when I told him, his choked, "It's not the right time," the way he disappeared for 3 days afterward. Most damning of all, Clara's Instagram post from that same week. A champagne toast with Ethan's hand clearly visible in the frame. The realization didn't hurt the way I expected. It settled cold and final, like a judge's gavel. He hadn't just betrayed me, he'd erased me, over and over until my own mind decided to finish the job. I reached for my phone, not to call him, but to block his number permanently. The ultrasound went back in the box. The truth didn't need remembering. It lived in my bones now. Some losses aren't tragedies. They're bullet dodged. The rain fell in sheets as I stood on Ethan's doorstep, water dripping from my hair onto the welcome mat he'd bought, because I once joked his apartment needed more colour. I hadn't rung the bell yet. Part of me wanted to turn around, to let the storm carry me away from this moment I'd both dreaded and needed. But the ultrasound photo burned in my pocket, its edges digging into my thigh like a reminder. I pressed the buzzer. Footsteps approached, too quick, like he'd been waiting. The door swung open to reveal Ethan in rumpled sweatpants, his hair messy from fingers running through it too many times. His eyes widened. "Lena." My name sounded like both a prayer and a curse on his lips. I stepped inside without invitation, rainwater pooling at my feet. His apartment smelled like takeout and stale cologne, the TV murmuring some late-night show in the background. A half-empty whiskey bottle sat on the coffee table beside two glasses. "Expecting company?" I nodded toward the second glass. He had the decency to look ashamed. "Old habit." I barked a laugh. "Which one? Lying or cheating?" The colour drained from his face. He reached for me, then thought better of it. "You remember." "Enough." I pulled the ultrasound from my pocket, watching his gaze lock onto it like a bomb about to detonate. "Want to explain this?" His throat worked. I was scared. Scared? The word tore out of me, raw and jagged. "You left me alone in a clinic waiting room because you were scared." "I came back after." My voice shattered the quiet of the apartment. "You always come back after, when it's convenient for you, after the hard part's over, after I've bled myself dry picking up your pieces." He flinched but didn't deny it. That was the worst part. He knew. He'd always known. Silence stretched between us, thick with everything we'd never said. The whiskey glass caught the light, refracting amber shards across the wall. Finally, Ethan exhaled. "What do you want me to say?" "Nothing." I folded the ultrasound back into my pocket, the paper crinkling softly. "I just needed you to see me walk away this time." I turned toward the door, the weight of his gaze on my back. "Lena." His voice cracked. "I loved you." Rain tapped against the windows, relentless. I didn't look back. Not enough. The door clicked shut behind me, quieter than a heartbeat. Some goodbyes don't need screaming. Just certainty. Clara found me at the art gallery opening, because of course she did. I stood beside Maya's latest exhibition, a series of abstract paintings titled "What the Body Remembers," sipping champagne that tasted like victory. The crowd buzzed around us, oblivious to the way Clara's stilettos clicked like gunshots against the polished concrete floor as she approached. Slumming it with the Bohemians now? She plucked a canapé from a passing tray, her ruby lips curling. How quaint. Maya stiffened beside me, but I just smiled. Clara looked out of place here, her designer dress too tight, her perfume too strong, a trophy fish gasping on the shore. "I heard about you and Ethan," she said, feigning sympathy. "Again." The painting behind me swirled with angry reds and healing golds, Maya's interpretation of my amnesia. I traced the frame with my fingertips. "Funny how things work out. You finally got what you wanted." Clara's smile faltered. That's when I saw it. The cracks in her perfect facade, the way her gaze darted to the door every 30 seconds. "He's not coming, is he?" I took a slow sip. "What's the matter?" Ethan not answering your texts. Her manicured nails dug into her clutch. You think you've won? He'll what? I laughed loud enough that nearby heads turned. Run back to you the moment he's bored. We both know how that ends. Maya handed me another champagne flute, her eyes dancing. To fresh starts. Clara looked between us, her mask slipping completely. The truth was written in the tremor of her bottom lip, the too bright gleam in her eyes. She wasn't the victor. She was just the next me. As she stormed out, Maya nudged my shoulder. You okay? The band started playing, something upbeat and brassy. I watched Clara shove past the bouncer, her silhouette shrinking against the neon-lit street. I'm fantastic. Revenge wasn't in remembering. It was in being free. The airport terminal buzzed with the chaotic energy of departures. Rolling suitcases, tearful goodbyes, the tinny voice over the PA announcing final boarding calls. Maya gripped my shoulders, her eyes suspiciously bright. You better send me a postcard from every single stop. I hugged her tight, breathing in the familiar scent of turpentine and vanilla shampoo. Only if you promise not to burn down the studio while I'm gone. My passport felt heavy in my pocket, stamped with destinations I'd only ever dreamed of. Venice, Bangkok, Marrakesh, places without ghosts, where no one would ask about the past. As I turned towards security, a flash of movement caught my eye. Ethan, standing by the ticket counters, his gaze locked on me. He looked different in daylight, smaller somehow. The man who'd once been my entire world, now just another stranger in a crowd. For a heartbeat, we stared at each other across the divide of everything we'd destroyed. Then, I raised my hand. Not a wave, not a goodbye, just an acknowledgement, before turning away. The line moved forward. I handed my boarding pass to the attendant, the paper crisp and uncreased. Somewhere behind me, I imagined Ethan still watching, still waiting for me to look back one last time. I didn't. The plane's engine roared to life beneath me as we taxied down the runway. Out the window, the city shrank into a mosaic of twinkling lights. All those old hurts, all those buried memories, now just specks in the distance. As we broke through the clouds, the rising sun painted the sky in impossible shades of gold and rose. The stewardess handed me a mimosa, the bubbles catching the light like tiny fireworks. Somewhere over the Atlantic, I opened the sketchbook Maya had slipped into my bag. On the first page, she'd written, "Draw me something beautiful from the other side of the world." I uncapped my pen, the blank page waiting, full of promise. The past was gone. The future was mine. And for the first time in years, I couldn't wait to see what came next.